So if you've been watching my videos, you probably thought, maybe if you're a woman, that my message is only directed toward men. But really, who did the fall affect? Was it just males, or was it both male and female? Now, if you look back at the text of Genesis chapter 3, the woman took hold of the fruit and ate of it, and her husband with her. So God spoke to all three, the serpent, to male, and to the female. And each of them, because of their choice, each of them followed a curse. The man would have to deal with the thorns and thistles when he's trying to scrounge out a living. The woman's, would increase in the pains of childbirth. And of course, the serpent, its head would be crushed by, the work that Jesus had done on the cross. So, as we could see from that text in Genesis chapter 3, is that the fall affected everyone, both male and female. And so, since the fall affected everyone, then, of course, they would have to be redeemed. They can only be redeemed through Jesus. And so, my messages, even though I speak from the viewpoint as a man, knowing what it's like, for the label of the main breadwinner, and so many labels that this world puts on man, I speak from the viewpoint of a man, but my messages are for everyone. Because God provides, and, that's the main point that, I just wanted to state. Is that, even though I speak from the viewpoint of a man, doesn't mean that the messages don't apply to women as well. Because it says in Scripture, we're all alike under sin. We all have fallen short of the glory of God. So, men deal with the labels of being, the main provider for the family. But it's not only man, it's also female. I mean, there's a lot of women that want to go it alone. They're not dependent on anybody but themselves. So with that position of a woman depending on herself and, not depending on anyone, then she has also fallen into the trap of the Adamic mindset, that independence from God. And that is something that, needs to be worked on. If you must realize that, the job that you go to every day that you may have confidence in, you could go in one day and find out that you no longer have it. Many things that will affect, somebody's confidence. And, I don't know if there are, I'm going to drive while I'm doing it, but I don't know if there is any woman out there with the thinking that, they're fine, they don't need help from God, it's only the man that needs help. I don't know if there's anybody that actually thinks that, but, the fall affected women as well. And it's women also that can work in that independent mindset, apart from God. I mean, women are not perfect, men are not perfect, and we already know that. So, do women have trust issues regarding God? Yes, well, you have to play out the scenarios, and, check out my other videos. I give, are you serving God or Mammon? I give different scenarios about what would happen, if you're put in that spot of, losing your job or whatever, or if God may call you to quit your job that you're going to every day. God's going to touch any level of trust that you're at, and He may tell you, I want you to quit your job. So, if there's any women out there that are boastfully confident that they have it all together and they're Christians, then what will they do in that circumstance? So, both man and woman will have trust issues. I mean, even though I've walked with God trust-wise since 2008, not when I gave my life to Jesus. I gave my life to Jesus in 1998. But I didn't learn to trust God until like 2008. And so I'm still learning. There's still areas in my walk, and even though I teach, there's still areas that I lack trust in God until God brings that up. And it's a hard place to be in when, you've trusted yourself for so long. And if you're new to my videos, I speak about when this Adamic mindset. Now, the Adamic mindset is a mindset that operates apart from God and his intervention. Since man, Adam chose to eat of the fruit, then separation with God began. And from that moment on, man has operated independently from God. And you can see that today. There are people that choose what they want to do instead of asking God, and that's because of that separation. And the world operates in that because they don't know Jesus. They're still operating in the ways of Adam. But unfortunately, many Christians can operate independently from God. I mean, yeah, they go to church, yeah, they worship God, but they could still make choices apart from God and do what they want until they get to that realization that they need to surrender their will to God. And that's very important. That's what my ministry is all about. It's, nobody is perfect. No one can say they have it all together. So a lot of these Christians who are financially focused will walk independently from God and think that they're completely all right. But God has put this message in me to show, these Christians that, you don't have it all together because maybe you lack trust in God. Maybe you're putting your confidence in your flesh. You're putting your dependence on what you can do and in your job and trusting your wealth. And they must be shown that they're doing exactly that, and they're going against the scriptures. It says in scripture that do not put any trust in man. Of what account is he? And cast your glance at riches, and they will be gone. So Christians, like I said, can operate independently from God still until they're shown that, that's exactly what they're doing. And both male and female can be given the choice of, fully, following God fully, trust-wise. So I would ask, if you're new to my videos, check out, various videos that I have. Are you serving God or Mammon? And I think there's two parts to that. And check out my other videos. Like I said, I give scenarios about what would you do in these certain circumstances. If God told you, for example, to quit your job, and if he told you to do that, would you do it or would you not? Would you not because you fear what's going to happen? And if you fear, lack or whatever, then that means that you haven't fully trusted God. So therefore, you are not perfect, if you have that mindset thinking you're more perfect than a man, you have it all together and the man doesn't. So, I don't know if that's the case, if there's actually anybody in there that, I don't know what the deal is, if there's any women out there that may have that thought. I don't ever mean to offend, but it's just pure speculation if, any women do have that thought that, they become so prideful that they think they have it all together and they don't need anyone's help. But, we're all alike regarding trusting God. We can always trust God. And we always can, be shown how we don't trust Him. So, I think it's very important that we can see, where we lack. I mean, like I said, I've been walking with God trust-wise since 2008, and I'm still lack trust in God. There could be, if you're not walking with God, you could be trusting God with a few things, and then you can get relaxed and start walking away, and then the Adamic mindset of independence can come in to where, a circumstance can come up and you're pushed into, taking care of matters yourself, which I've had to deal with. Then, you could be shown that you're not trusting God, and it's very easy to fall into that trap. So like I said, the fall affected everyone, both male and female. And I have loads of teachings. If people have watched my videos, they'll be like, man, that's what he talks about a lot, is this whole Adamic mindset and, trusting God. And really, you know what? I believe that each of us, when we fully surrender our will to God, that, God gives us a life message that is, from our spirit. He leads us into a certain, place to where maybe he delivers us from something, and then we speak directly on that. So in my case, I got to that place to where, I had nowhere to go. I was staying with my mother. I was dealing with, not having car insurance. I was dealing with homelessness. And I failed, the role as a man that the world puts on a man as the main breadwinner. I failed that role. And since I failed that role, then, God showed me that until I surrendered my will to Him and stopped doing it on my own and following Him fully, that's when He really took over. And, all my choices would come from Him. I'd ask God, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And until I did that, until I surrendered my will to Him, then that's when, He showed me who He was, and that He was my source, and that He was my provider. And He revealed to me exactly what the world believed and how I had fallen into that trap. And just because every male or female may follow the cultural norm, which I call what male and female follows in this world, Christians and the world alike, since He revealed that to me, He said, you have a choice now of either following it or not following it. And so I chose to go against this cultural norm, in which you do that, you will, you'll be criticized, which I was numerous times by family and friends, because I was breaking this pattern. And so He showed me who He was. I started trusting Him for things that I needed, and He's come through. And that's how I know that He was my source, that He was the provider. And there's so many scriptures in the Bible that show that we need to stop trusting ourselves, that we need to trust God. Because anybody that has pride will be overconfident, thinking that they have it all together, until they lose that. Look at, Nebuchadnezzar. He was a king. He apparently had everything, but he refused to give God glory. He refused to acknowledge that, God was the God, until God caused him to lose his wits, and that for a time. So God can take away from us who are prideful whatever we depend on. I mean, you may depend on your job. You may depend on your car to get to your job. You may boast that you have a lot in your bank account. You may boast that you have invested a lot. You've gained a lot. But what if the money that you rely on in your bank is taken away? Well, you're going to be upset. And if you're going to be upset, then that means that you had relied on that money. And if you relied on that money, then that is where you have leaned on. That's where your trust relies. And it's not on God. But if you surrender your will to God and learn to trust Him, then if somebody steals from you, you're going to realize that, hey, God gives and God takes away. But you're not going to be moved. I mean, you're going to be aware of the fact that somebody has taken, something from you. You're going to be angry at that aspect, but you're not going to be dismayed. You're not going to be moved. You're not going to be like, oh, what am I going to do now? Because if your trust is fully in God, you realize that He is your source. And whatever you ask for, He will grant it for you. So, both male and female, if your dependence is on anything of the world, then it's like, for example, probably a stupid example, but let's say that you're sitting on, like a piece of, plywood or plyboard or whatever you call it, and it's held up by these, these pieces of board, I don't know, 2x4s or whatever, they're held up by that on each corner. Well, let's say these plyboards, represent your areas of trust. One side is your job, the other is the car, the other is your bank account, and it could be the other is your investments. And so, what if one of those 2x4s were kicked and moved? Well, the whole plyboard's going to fall along with it, because you have depended on, that exact thing, which, God gave me that revelation just now, which I think is really awesome. So, if that's what you're depending on, what's going to happen? You're going to fall. But let's say, and it's exactly that, what Jesus had said, that if whoever listens to His teachings, their houses are built on the rock. Whoever doesn't listen to His teachings is somebody that builds their house on the sand, and the storms of life come and it knocks it over. And why would it be knocked over? Because it's not on a good foundation. And so, you may be a Christian, you may be confident that, you're good with God and all that, but are you really following Jesus' teachings fully regarding Matthew chapter 6, where He said, behold, the birds of the air, they don't sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much better than they? So He tells us not to worry. And, Christians can worry in this world. They worry about how they're going to make it. They worry about, if they don't go to work, that they're going to, they're going to wonder how they're going to eat. Well, if you're worried about that, then that means that you haven't followed Jesus' teachings fully. You have placed your trust and your dependence in yourself and in your job, and not in God. And so, therefore, you are building your house on the sand, and it's not on God. So, like I said, a lot of Christians may be overly confident, trusting in themselves, until they're showed otherwise. So, my question to you is, have you built your house on the sand, or you built it on the rock? Are you trusting Jesus' words fully? Are you just reading just to read them? Or are you taking it to heart? Are you asking yourself, what am I going to do in this situation? if I lose my job, am I going to be upset, or am I going to place God as my source and my provider? So I believe I'm reaching to the conclusion, and I'm doing this without notes, which is the first time, and this is quite a long message. But I really hope that what I have said has, really touched you. And if you have placed your trust in yourself and in your job and not in God, I pray that you would, make that change. Place yourself, fully in God's grasp and not in the grasp of the world. Don't rely on anything of the world. And like I said, if you're new to my teachings, then I would ask that you would check out my videos from, one up till the present. I think I have them up to like 119 or something. And, the reason I created them was because the revelation that I was learning from God, it wouldn't be right for me to keep it to myself. That's like the man that buried his talent in the ground because he was afraid. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to bury my talent in the ground. I wanted to receive the revelation, and I wanted to give it away, because the revelation that God has given me is like chains. Is like a key to release chains from the wrists and the feet of people. They don't realize that they have chains on them. They don't realize that they're lacking trust in God until they're shown that they are. So that's the reason why I had wrote my book, Who is Your Provider, to show people that all the revelation that God gave me, I wanted to give out to people so that they could be free from this world, because we don't know what's going to happen in this world. We don't, how long until, the Antichrist makes his appearance, and, we have no choice but to trust God. If you've trusted in yourself and in your job, what's going to happen if he comes? And then you're going to, you're going to be dismayed, because you've trusted in your job for so long. You trusted in your bank account, in which you probably cannot access, because they're going to probably find out that you are a Christian, and, your bank account is going to be void. They're going to take your money. And so you're going to be like, what am I going to do now about food and this? Well, that's why, Jesus came on earth, is to show us what we need to do. That whatever he had, a few loaves and a few fish, through God, he multiplied it. We don't know what God has planned. So it's a call for me and God to you to, prepare. You need to prepare your hearts. You need to get into that place with God and reason out what's going to happen, if this happens or that happens. You need to reason out, do I really trust God or not? So check out my videos from one till the present, and each of them is revelations that God has given me, and it's all for the purpose of getting you into that place of fully trusting God and not yourself. So I'm going to end the video. Thanks for taking the time to watch.